Lonely Monk Productions.
Yo, That's My Jawn is brought to you by Liquid IV. Guys, it is festival season. And you know me, I love a festival. And the secret to enjoying a festival is to stay hydrated. Liquid IV has you covered while you prep before, power through to the headliner, and recover after the weekend. Liquid IV hydrates 2 times faster than water alone with 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. Man, I love Liquid IV. It comes in a convenient packaging and it's tasty. When you see me at the Exponential Music Festival this fall, you know that I will have Liquid IV on me. And it comes in 12 delicious, refreshing flavors to keep your hydration routine exciting. All right, strawberry used to be my favorite, but they have this new one. It's strawberry lemonade and it is a banger. 1 stick of Liquid IV in 16 ounces of water hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficiently than water alone. It's non-GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and soy. Liquid IV believes that equitable access to clean and abundant water is the foundation of a healthier world. So Liquid IV partners with leading organizations for innovative solutions to help communities protect both their water and their futures. To date, Liquid IV has donated over 39 million servings in 50-plus countries around the world. Okay, and you can get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the promo code YTMJ at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using the promo code YTMJ at liquidiv.com. Do it, and let's get our fests on. I don't know if y'all have heard Act Natural by Margaret Glaspie yet, but yo.
That's my Jawn! Hey yo, displace the guilt.
What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I am your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Senior Trip, Paris, that cafe. I love that waiter. John Luke, a.k.a. Nate 3.0, back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. On today's episode, I am joined by Jefferson Berry for a great conversation about his new album, Prairie Fire, and his history in radio and as a teacher, and we talk about gun control and so much more. And that is coming up in a bit. But first, gang, how have you been? You know, like I warned you a few weeks ago, this summer schedule is wonky, and I apologize for the disruption and not having new episodes for you to dine on, but guess what? I have got a bunch in the can for you to have a bountiful feast. And while I can't guarantee there won't be no more disruptions, that's a horrible sentence, I am also a realist, and I know that there very well may be. So that being said, I have a bunch of episodes already backed up and recorded. So for the next few weeks, expect to have some episodes waiting for you on Monday mornings. But my friends, do not mistake my absence for laziness. I have been a busy bee and buzz. And I'm going to share with you some of what I've been up to. All right, coming next month, you know, that super secret project I mentioned a few episodes ago? Well, it's finally going to be launched. I've been producing an actual play D&D podcast entitled Oops, All Bards. And if you can't gather by the title, it's a campaign of 6 bards thrust from their graduation from Bard College into an adventure. Host and DM Jill Ivy weaves a tale of intrigue and hilarity as the cast of bards must find a way to save the land from the return of an autocrat long thought dead. Oops, All Bards will be available on all major podcast apps next month, so be on the lookout for that. And I also recorded a guest appearance on the Single Season Record podcast, hosted by my pals Derek Armijo and Brian Strang. The show examines TV shows that only lasted one season, and so far they've tackled shows like Wonderfalls and Bunheads and Swan's Crossing, Father of the Pride, The Pits, and Drive. And my episode? It's a one-shot as we discuss the one-season, one-episode 1984 hip-hop classic, Graffiti Rock. It was such a fun conversation, and I was so excited to get the chance to guest on their pod. And then, finally, my appearance of Risk is already getting a re-release as part of the Black Lives series this coming Thursday, June 22nd, alongside stories by Darrelise Lyons and Tori Weston. It's an absolute honor to be part of such a tremendous show and collection of tales. The whole experience has been amazing, and I was totally blown away to hear it's already being re-released. And, of course, the best way to stay on top of all the news that's fit to print is to sign on up for the mailing list. Head on over to www.yothat'smyjawn.com, fill out that form, and be prepared to receive pure excellence emailed straight into your inbox. And look, I don't have to tell you because I'm sure you've done it already, but if you haven't, go ahead and follow us on the socials at YoThat'sMyJawn. We're chasing socials like Pokemon, man. We gotta catch them all. We even got that sweet, sweet Blue Sky up and running, so go follow it. All right, we're going to take a quick ad break to pay the bills. Then we return with my interview with Jefferson Berry.
Y'all, quit being boring just eating dinner and watching TV every night. Next time, pull out a Wongo puzzle and enjoy the conversation and fun that happens when people puzzle together. Wongo is the perfect balance of a good challenge without being so hard that you stop talking to each other and leave your family forever. Trust me, once you try Wongo, you will never go back to a boring old jigsaw puzzle. They are 100% wooden puzzles that will last forever. Each piece is hand-drawn, so no two pieces are the same, and you'll discover some fun, whimsy pieces as you work through it. They come in a custom wooden box, which is perfect for storage and gifting. And they have so many cool designs like African elephant and the wild lizard and the sea tortoise. With stunning designs and unique shapes, Wongo puzzles are a cut above the rest. I like doing the snow globe puzzle myself. It was so great to pull out a puzzle and be done in a night and not have it on the table for a week. So what are you waiting for? Go to wongopuzzles.com and pick your puzzle today. And be sure to use the promo code YTMJ to get 10% off your offer. This is the most fun you've had with a puzzle, guaranteed, or your money back. Go to WONGOpuzzles.com and use the code YTMJ to get 10% off your order and get puzzling right now. That's WongoPuzzles.com. Offer code YTMJ.
My guest today is a singer, songwriter, and leader of the Urban Acoustic Coalition. His latest album, Prairie Fire, is an 11-song journey through the storytelling tradition of urban folk. He will be celebrating the album's release with a show this Thursday, June 22nd, at the Living Room in Ardmore, PA. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show, Jefferson Berry. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great Jefferson Berry. Jefferson, thank you for joining me today on Yo, That's My Jawn.
It's so good to be with you, Nate.
I'm so excited to talk to you. We kind of spoke about it just before, but I've been trying to set something up between the two of us to have this conversation for quite some time, so I'm glad we're finally getting to have it.
It's about time. Yeah.
It's not too late, but I wish it were sooner. But we did it. We finally achieved the goal. The new album Prairie Fire is absolutely phenomenal, and I can't wait to talk to you about it. But before we even get started, let's tell these folks a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Southern California. My parents moved out there in 1967 when the revolution was all aflutter. And so I became this little hippie hitchhiking up and down the West Coast. And I graduated high school, then finished college at the University of Santa Cruz. I'm a banana slug. So, and and then I got my radio career. I was in the radio business for about 30 years and, selling rock and roll radio to advertisers and promoters. And that, I got sick of that and became a high school teacher when I moved back to Philadelphia. But in between there, I had an ad agency. I consulted Howard Stern stations around the country. A lot of different experiences with creatives and different folks, and I became a high school teacher, inner city high school teacher for 12 years. So living a sort of curious life here.
Yeah, you've worn yourself some many hats. When you were a kid, like what kind of music was playing around the house? What were your folks into?
Well, my folks were listening. My mom listened to a lot of Peter, Paul, and Mary, and the Most Happy Fella and Oklahoma and things like that. Mozart. My mom was a big Mozart fan, but they didn't listen to any of the, the pop music of that thing or bebop or any things that should have been popular when they were, lively teenagers. Which indicates my parents weren't really lively teenagers. So, but yeah, we come on to the Beatles like everybody else. February 9th, 1964. The Ed Sullivan Show, and man, that just changed my world.
What exact? I mean, obviously the greatest band of all time, but what exactly was it for you that kind of clicked? What excited you the most about it when you first saw it?
John Lennon hitting the point and just banging out tunes while the girls were screaming. I looked at that and I said, oh yeah, I want to do that. So, and I was young, and everybody and his mother was trying to play all those songs, and picked up my brother's guitar, and then we moved west. We moved west in 1967, and all kinds of new music was happening out on the West Coast that we weren't really listening to on Cousin Brucey WABC back east. So, but so the music back east, music out west was, and radio was just so alive. They got people had bumper stickers on their car with radio station call letters that represented their lifestyle, right? This is who I am. I am KLOS Los Angeles, and or KRQR or KROQ Los Angeles, modern rock, hard rock, and or MET. I mean, or KHJ, the hit radio station. You were what you listened to, and that identity was something. Like it was important. It was important to people.
Well, so you're taking in all of this music, and you said you were fooling around on your brother's guitar. Were you starting to play at all, or were you starting to play out?
Well, in 1967, I'm 12, so okay. I'm not really playing out. I'm just learning stuff, down on the beach. There'll be a couple guitars, and one guy will have figured out, I don't know, George Harrison something, and he'll show you the chords. And so you steal a little bit of this here and a little bit of that there. And, 50 years later, I've stolen a lot of music from a lot of people, so but that early days is a really important part of it.
Yeah. So did you immediately at that time kind of come up with the idea of going into radio and kind of working with radio stations and stuff like that? Was that kind of the goal?
No, I really there's a lot of stuff I was involved with back then that I shouldn't have not have been involved with. So, I mean, drugs, sex, and rock and roll, and so finally, once I got out of college, and finished my stint as a migrant farm worker in the Central Valley. I mean, I had to do something a little more, I don't know, substantial. So I became a sales representative for a pots and pans company. And somebody said, listen, and I was at that time out of college, I'm playing the LA club circuit, but I mean, there's all kinds of people out there, like Van Halen's happening. The Knack is happening in LA, big LA bands. And I recognized that I wasn't going to be that successful. I was not going to be that good. But I could get close to the music. And, so I took that sales experience and got a job selling rock and roll radio up in San Francisco.
What station?
And basically it all just happened one day. I just said, look, I'm going to KMEL San Francisco, the Beast of the Bay, the Camel. They had this camel shooting through the O of the 106. They had a big inflatable camel, that they would put out by the freeway. I mean, the promotion on this station was just, it was outrageous. And basically, they gave me no accounts. They gave me a phone book to go talk to people about, rock and roll music. And this is a good place to advertise. And I went and talked to, drag strips, motorcycle dealers, nightclubs, an 18-hour day where you show up with a suit and tie during the day and then you go out and party all night in nightclubs and get their advertising money. It was ridiculous. It was like a party that never ended.
That's incredible.
But, and I got to hang out with, Eddie Money and Journey and, various different folks doing various different projects and having a lot of fun.
So how long were you at that station for?
I was at Camel for 3 years. And then I went to the Rock of the 80s station called The Quake. And I got to work with Alex Bennett at both of those radio stations, a big time morning DJ. And then, I started making babies with a wife back there. My oldest daughter was born in San Francisco. But to get credentials in the radio business, I sort of thought that I should go back east. And so I got a job for a couple months with WAPP New York, come down to WISP in Philadelphia, who switched over to the Howard Stern station pretty quickly. We were the first Howard Stern simulcast. So, and with that going on, I went up to Brooklyn and I spoke with Eddie Antar at Crazy Eddie, and I brought Crazy Eddie to Philadelphia.
Oh, that was your fault.
Yeah, that was my fault. He's insane.
Those commercials.
It was really obnoxious. And the thing is, like, we couldn't find enough airtime to sell him. He would buy anything that was sold. It was preposterous. But still so close to the music, so close to the nightclub action. And the station was doing promoters with the Hooters. I sold a sponsorship for Live Aid. I got to hang out backstage for Live Aid in '85, and just having, crazy being that close to it, and yet creatively, the music part of it wasn't really kicking in at anymore. I mean, I'm playing, like everybody else, but it's very amateurish.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question was like, so, concurrent to this, like, were you writing music at this time or were you still? I
am a little bit, but it's kind of like, developing songwriting skills over a period of time, like at this point, if you go, I have about 50 songs produced on Spotify that are really very high level. This is Jefferson Berry on Spotify. It's got, the stuff I'm really proud of. But then there's another, 50, 60 songs that were written over a period of 20, 30 years that are, they're expressive. I'm learning, developing chops while I'm doing it. Learning different genres. The blues coming out of a folk background that was in my house with, the Peter, Paul, and Mary stuff that my mom was listening to. I had those kind of harmonies just sort of built into my DNA. Coming from California, I also had a lot of Grateful Dead and Spirit and the psychedelic music, flowing through stuff. Somewhere along the line, I'm picking up on John Lee Hooker and the whole line of blues stuff. Lee Michaels comes to mind. So a lot of these influences are there. Elvis Costello was a big one. And listen to Elvis Costello or Bob Dylan write songs gives you sort of something to model after. And I've tended to go towards that style of songwriting that tells stories. You don't have to be the best singer or the best guitar player in the world if you have an interesting story.
Yeah, and you definitely have like some incredible stories. Like I think like you the storytelling aspect of your songs is such an incredible strength that you have, because you paint these in these vivid pictures so were you always drawn to kind of storytelling songs, or did that, like you just said, listening to Dylan and Elvis Costello, did you kind of gravitate towards it eventually?
I guess it's a synthesis of that style of music, as well as having a passion for William Faulkner or Steinbeck or Hemingway, and seeing how that they weave stories and create characters and create scenes and scenery. To put that kind of stuff on a musical basis is or a musical platform is kind of like where I'm coming from.
Yeah, definitely.
No, that developed over quite a long time.
Yeah. Rewinding into the radio, how did you get out of radio? Like, was it a conscious decision, or was it just, the end of radio of what we know and it becoming
it was a very conscious decision. I wrote a check for my daughter's college tuition in 2009 as the recession was just about to hit. And I wrote that check, and then I walked into my boss at CBS and I say, I quit. I'm going to become a high school teacher. And he looked at me like I had three heads. You're not going to become a high school teacher. And, because I'm done with you. And it was like, what happened there in the economy and what happened in radio at that point was just like, I miss it, but what I miss isn't there anymore, right? The bean counters had taken radio off into a space where you're really not delivering results for nightclubs or motorcycle dealers. When I first started, I could write a commercial for a motorcycle dealer, and I would make him a lot of money that weekend. I was in service to somebody. You don't think of advertising as being service-oriented, but that's what business people do. They try to promote their business and try to make some money. And if you can help them do that, you're of service to them. Well, it became something else. And radio stations started to run. From your own experience, listening to radio, man, they're running like 25 commercials an hour. 25 minutes of an hour. You can't take in that kind of information. So I knew radio was dying. I saw a recession coming on. I always wanted to teach a little history. And so that's what I did.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah. And just another fascinating kind of bookmark in your many hats. I think not just becoming a teacher, but teaching, in the city to, people that or, a community that people tend to kind of overlook or want to avoid is just admirable. I find it absolutely fascinating.
Well, it's also about this time I started a band called Hippies and Hillbillies. I had a band called Hippies and Hillbillies, which is sort of like Jerry Garcia Goes to Texas. And that had, with a banjo, mandolin, and bass. And that was the beginning of my urban acoustic roots, although we were playing hillbilly music for the most part. The idea that you could put out a quasi-rock product with banjos and mandolins, and now also with harmonicas and lap steel, not necessarily, Marshall stacks and, that kind of thing. That's the roots of the music, was with artists like Robert Earl Keen and Ray Wiley Hubbard and, Texas kind of rock. So, but I quit the job then, and I'll go off and get my teaching credentials and started teaching in the inner city.
How much of that informed kind of the storytelling that you wanted to tell in your songwriting, working at the schools?
A lot, absolutely a lot. And when we would have. I taught African American history to African Americans. What we would do every Tuesday was Black Music Tuesday, and everybody would bring in their tunes that we would study songwriting, and we would study the roots of different kinds of songwriting, from slave haulers to the blues and the jazz, and how that all moved up the Mississippi River from New Orleans to the Black Renaissance, into the origins of hip hop. And so they would come back to me with all kinds of stuff that I was not familiar with. And it was, you can pack a lot of words in some of that hip hop stuff. So, I mean, I learned how that kind of songwriting was happening. And at that time, I ran into this guy, Samir Woods, who was one of my students. And you could totally see that this guy had a magnetism about him that just wouldn't quit. He had a focus. Now, he was a clown. I mean, you didn't want him in your class necessarily, because lessons got disrupted with him just about every day. But you could see that he was focused. And I was the faculty advisor for the school talent show, and I had him MC it. And, went off big. Now, I got dozens of kids like that. But this guy became Little Uzi. And I mean, so later, that Little Uzi is happening all over the world, but I didn't even know it was Samir Woods. I didn't put the connection together. So one day when my principal, I guess my principal or the head of school, somebody came to me with a hip hop magazine, and they're interviewing Little Uzi. And Little Uzi says, when I was getting my high school diploma in Philadelphia, I had a teacher told me, if you want a real job, you got to keep the tattoos off your face. So the first thing he did when he graduated, he got a bunch of tattoos on his face because he didn't want a real job. And he got it. My principal was going, well, you must have told him this, right? And I did. If you want to get a job with a company that runs plumbing trucks out there, a tattoo on your face doesn't help you get that job. It just doesn't. So, but he's been fabulously successful. On the other hand, the other guy, Run Up Rico, man, he was on his way. He was on his way up, and the stuff he was doing in high school might have been more impressive than what Samir was doing. Of course, the kind of the production that Little Uzi's had and his video production has been groundbreaking. And even coming from the kind of acoustic rock place that I'm coming from, you take a look at what he's doing, and you have to be impressed.
It's
incredible.
incredible.
Got some good people behind him.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible.
I just hope he learned from. I just hope he learned from me that he needs to pay his taxes. I taught them all about that in government class too. I taught them about taxes and investments, and so. But he seems to be doing great. But Ron Perico, not so much. He was murdered.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's absolutely a shame what happened there.
It's so many of my young students, have been. I mean, it's really like it was several funerals a year for 12 years.
And that's part of like what I find so admirable, is because like that's something that it could very easily break you, and yet you continue to teach and to educate, and it's just like absolutely amazing, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who thank you for that.
It doesn't happen so much now after COVID. And now that I've been away from teaching for a while and playing music full time for the last couple of years. But before that, I would get stopped 2 or 3 times a week by former students, because I had a couple thousand of them. 2 or 3 a week might be a bit of an exaggeration. 2 or 3 a month would stop me and say, "Yo, Mr. Berry, that stuff you told me about, I don't know, buying a house or whatever. I would not have come up with that on my own. And, this is my wife. This is my kids. I'm a $80,000 a year plumber." Good. I'm so glad to hear you're making twice what I am teaching. But, setting them off on that path, and then they see you and they say, "Man, that guy gave me the information that I was sorely missing." And touching the future like that, I mean, you really can't. You can't replace it. And I miss that as well. But that kind of situation post-COVID doesn't really exist that much anymore either. COVID changed a lot of things.
Yeah. Being kind of there on in that ground level and stuff, and with the way, especially post-COVID, just kind of the I don't like using the word powder keg, but like just the state of kind of the youth in Philadelphia, and just how many people have been left behind, and how many people turn to so much that they just cannot avoid. And the horrible outcomes from it. Like, do you see, having been there and talked to people and families, do you see like a solution? Do you see like kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, or something to? Clearly, you're not gonna. One person can't fix everything, but is there anything you think that could change things?
I see a solution to the deep poverty in Philadelphia. I think that was the question.
Yes.
I'm of the school of thought that a good job helps a lot of things, and that you get a good job through training that should be free to everybody. Navigating this complicated society is just like, it's kind of nutty, I mean, it's really hard to figure out on your own, especially if you're not, modeling on something you've seen or heard or done. And when everybody and generation after generation is in this situation where you're living hand to mouth, you don't know anything else.
Yeah.
You see, I mean, and this is the allure of the drug business. You see people out there, making lots of money, but truthfully, they're, it's a puff of smoke. It's an illusion. Most of those guys are living with their moms, So a good job, and understanding that. I think the financial education, financial literacy is something that everybody should have a whole lot more of in that community. Also, I'm a big advocate of gun control. I have a video called Blocks and Guns. I just got another recognition from the London Music Video Film Festival, which just came in today. I'm pretty happy about it. But, the idea there's so many guns out there, but you really need to make gun control a situation where if you don't need a gun, you shouldn't have one.
Yeah, I'm kind of a weird absolutist in that people are like, well, the Second Amendment, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I'm all for and I don't know why I would say this out loud on the podcast, but I'm all for okay, then revise the Second Amendment. I'm of the belief that we got to a certain point where we no longer will make changes to a document that was meant to be changed, and we now treat the Constitution as Bible, and it wasn't always this way. It's only been 40 years or something like that we 40 or 50 years that we've kind of changed the idea and the concept of the Constitution to make it this infallible, untouchable thing. And I just don't think that's true. I don't know how you fix that.
Yeah, well, actually, the Second Amendment calls for a well-regulated militia.
Yeah.
So, and even in the decision that took militia sort of out of the equation, they said, government should still regulate gun ownership. And if we had a database of crazies and felons along with every gun in America, and you mix those two databases and take guns away from the crazies, it's like, yeah. That and the places where that's been done, where that kind of database technology and enforcement has taken place, the level of violence has been reduced radically. The thing is in these communities with these folks, that you have to think that the people calling the shots don't care if they're shot. They're shooting one another,
That's exactly right. And
I've talked to kids about their needs for guns, and Mr. Berry, I've got to be strapped up, because everybody else is. And I go, look, I'm not going to get shot because I don't carry a gun. You don't have to worry about me shooting you before you shoot me. Yeah, I don't know. And then, well, no, Mr. Berry, actually, you're not going to get shot because you're white. It's like, of course. I mean, that has something to do with it, too. I'm not going to deny that. But that conversation with that kid, I'm still thinking about it. Really promising football player, full scholarship to Oklahoma or Ohio State or something like that. I have a conversation about the Second Amendment. 2 weeks later, somebody shoots him in the head.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, right. So you can't really make that stuff up. And I know this is kind of off the music track, but when you're experiencing life at a variety of levels, at the street level, at the academic level, wherever you're really experiencing life, you get inspired to tell some pretty wild stories. I have a song on a Double Deadbolt Logic called Shattered Glass. This was really influenced by my kids because it's about stealing cars. And they knew all about stealing cars. How to, you go, Mr. Berry, you got to look for the 2009 and below Hondas and Toyotas, because those are the cars that you can strip the steering column wires and hot wire them. Anything after that, it becomes really hard. I go, okay. And then what do you do? Well, the parts on the Honda Accord, you can find a Honda Accord 2009 or before, those parts are still pretty good, right? So, and there's 2 or 3 different strip shops that we go to.
It's wild. It's wild.
And how much money do you get for that? Hey, you're $400 or $500, Mr. Berry. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but like you said, it's hard to argue it because there's no alternative. There's no like sustainable job or kind of training for vocation like that.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
It's the world. I hate this.
And then you go, I'm gonna be an NBA star. Oh, good. And today after school, you're gonna go home and shoot 100 foul shots. 100 foul shots? Are you kidding me? I go, you're not going to the NBA.
Right.
Okay. If you're not willing there to put in the work, then you're not doing that. Seth, Samir Woods. I mean, I gotta tell you, man, that guy was writing all the time. All the time. He was writing in high school and apparently afterwards. Always writing, always coming up with bars. And that's what you got to do to be that kind of good.
Yeah, absolutely. At what point did you kind of start to actually record stuff? So like 2020, you mentioned Double Deadbolt Logic. What was kind of the lead up to laying that down?
Well, I put together this really good band, and you can go out and you can play shows. But they really dug the music. So we go into the studio, and the kind of stuff that I'd done before was, we would record stuff live more or less, and not take advantage of any of the digital assets that Pro Tools gives you, right? And we started producing records and songs that are really tight. Because everybody's got a job, you can get tight in a couple different ways. You can get tight by rehearsing 2 or 3 nights a week for 6 months. But I got the guys in my band. I mean, they work. We all worked. We were all working in 2020. You don't have that kind of time. So when I would go in, I would lay down the tracks for the songs, and I would get them as close to a click as possible. And then bring in the drummer behind that, to play to something that's really, locked in, along with the bass player. And then we bring in the instruments, we bring in the singers, and that's we came up with a formula for producing songs. Not the cheapest way to do it, not the quickest way to do it, but damn, I mean, they sound so much better than the live recordings that, most people in my position are doing.
Yeah.
And Double Deadbolt Logic was the first of those records. We had a couple records before that, but they were done more or less live. And so Double Deadbolt Logic, Soon, and now Prairie Fire are all produced in this way that really in the studio, getting things really locked in.
Yeah, and well, the results are phenomenal.
Part of that is once you produce songs like that, and you that's what the band rehearses to, and now you can go out and knock those tunes out like that too.
Yeah. So, was that like your pod during the pandemic? Because, clearly you've been putting an album out a year. So you were definitely working and working in that way, I'm guessing, lend itself to be able to still operate. Right.
Well, Double Deadbolt Logic came out and that's a very school influenced record. There's a lot of songs on there that are influenced by my working with inner city teens. But that came out on March 7th, 2020. I mean, the whole world shut down. I had tours set up. I had a lot of promotion lined up for it, and it died. Because it died like 1 million Americans died. Yeah. So then a couple of years later, along the same lines, we're still, what else are you going to do but record and write songs? And it soon came out, and that got us, it's got some nice festival jobs off of that. And now Prairie Fire is in the same mode.
Yeah. And also in between there, you did your acoustic solo, Dreams of Modern Living. You're making, it's like you're making up for lost time because you are very prolific.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff. Prairie Fire and Dreams of Modern Living were kind of produced at the same time, as we waited for different parts to come together. My banjo, lap steel, electric guitar player really he wasn't operating in the studio like he wanted to. He wanted to do stuff in his own studio. So Prairie Fire actually took like a year and a half to do. And in the meantime, said, listen, I got to get some more product out. And that's why I did the solo record. It's kind of like a folk record, actually, because it's just me and a guitar. I really love playing in a band, though.
Yeah.
I mean, just playing solo, and I do a lot because, you have gigs that won't pay for a whole band, so it's nice filling up the schedule with solo shots. But this Prairie Fire album is just, again, Bud Burrows on keyboards and mandolin. Marky B is the best harmonica player in Philadelphia, in my opinion. Got a new drummer on this record, Adam Schoenberg, and my guy, Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike and I, we hang out all the time playing. So, that's the band. And Dave Brown plays just about everything under the sun. And then we bring in various people to, fill out the coalition. It's sort of like, I have a bass band, but it's a coalition of the best players in Philadelphia. This record's got Emily Drinker on it. I don't know. Have you interviewed her yet?
I haven't interviewed her. We're in a Discord channel server together, and I definitely want to get her on this show because I was going to ask you about that. Like, bringing her in. What was working with Emily like? Because she's just a phenomenal voice.
She's a phenomenal voice, and she's so intuitive. And in the studio, you can say, "Listen, why don't you do this?" And there's not a lot of singers you can say, try this out, and then she knocks it out the first time. And my problem with my band, I need a lead singer singing backup. But the thing is, lead singers, they don't want to sing backup. Right. And Emily Drinker, geez, the band she's got that she fronts, it's phenomenal. They're great. Why would you want to sing backup for me when you could be leading your own thing? Now, not to mention that she's a darling, right? She's easily 40 years younger than me, and so she's got her thing. They've got Irene Lambro, who spent some time with the band, and she's good. She sits in with us from time to time, and she's the lead singer in this band, Medea, and I saw them a couple of weeks ago. Oh my gosh, they're tremendous. Again, why would you sing backup for Jefferson when you could be on the point for a really, really good band? So that happens. I had a band for a while with my daughter, Brianna Berry, a band called The Berries. It also had Bud Burrows in it. But we decided that singer guitar player was encroaching on the relationship of father-daughter. So Is it hard? You were saying try it this way. Is it hard to say try it this way to your daughter, or oh, there's no telling her.
Yeah.
No, and she was the point. She was not. I was the backup singer in that band. I'm producing it, but she was the point person. And really, the music business is not for everybody, and it certainly wasn't for her. So she decided that, she'd rather, go off on her own stuff. And she's married a jazz piano player who we all adore. He's the best musician in the family now. But anyway, the getting people in. I've got Kenny Lancey on saxophone on a couple of cuts on this album. He's so intuitive. He just, on soprano sax, it's just like his tone it's just flawless. And there again, you say, hey, try this. And, I might sit down at the piano and run a line by him. I don't know if I did that with him or not, but, giving him, a certain amount of direction in certain parts of the song. He understands what you're saying right away. You're talking the same language. He executed. And, the song You Could Do Anything, it's kind of my favorite song on the record.
Yeah, my if we're talking favorites here, I got to tell you, my favorite song on the record is "Circus Song," and there's a very specific reason why, and it's because it just kind of fills me with the same kind of joy that all of that material that Harry Nilsson wrote for the for the Robert Altman Popeye soundtrack. It fills me with that same kind of just that feeling of like I would like to sit somewhere, possibly drunk, and sing along to this song,
Well, that song is written by Michael Spear, and that's another one of the tenets of Jefferson Berry and the UAC, is we're a part of a songwriting community. And what I don't think Philadelphians do enough, I don't think we cover one another's songs enough. And so on every record, I try to do, in this case, it was a Michael Spear song, but, on Double Dip, on Dreams of Modern Living, I covered a Ben Arnold song. And getting these songs that other friends have written, covering your friends, I think is kind of important. And Michael Spear, I mean, that's a great story. I mean, that's just a great story.
Yeah.
And not necessarily one I would have come up with. And it sits on the last song on side A of the vinyl when it comes out. And I'm so happy he lent that to me.
It's great. It's great. And you do like a phenomenal job with it. You knock it out of the park. But that idea of like covering friends and covering Philly musicians and stuff like that, I'm right there with you. Like I had like a small singer-songwriter background, and one of my favorite things was learning how to play like a song that somebody else I opened for or somebody else I was playing with. I mean, I just did it recently. I don't know if you're familiar with the Tisberries, but I just put it up on my on Facebook and Instagram recently. But I did a cover of their "On the Run" in Harmony, New Jersey, on a banjolele, just because like that song gets stuck in my head. But taking these songs and just like kind of putting your love on them to just kind of pay your respect to them. It's a beautiful thing, and I think it's an awesome thing to do.
Well, and the thing is, for the people that wrote the song and then they hear your arrangement of it, Michael Spear's arrangement of that song, when I first took that song over, now what's on the album is this calliope kind of keyboard thing that Bud Burroughs came up with. But my first arrangement is I kind of turned it into a John Prine song, which was very, very different than what we ended up with. But I mean, when you're doing that for other songwriters, man, that's as flattering as anything could possibly be.
Absolutely. Well, we got the album release show coming up on the 22nd of this month of June.
That'll be this Thursday, yeah.
And you were just telling me something about you're doing a movie there. Is that the Urban Acoustic movie?
Yes. It's the Americana Philadelphia, the Urban Acoustic movie. And basically, it's following sort of the format of The Last Waltz by Scorsese, where we're interviewing people about in a documentary style. We're interviewing people about the local Philadelphia Americana scene. There's two sort of sets of interviews. There's people that are a real key part of the scene. Much like yourself, we'd love to interview you for this.
Oh my God, I would love to.
Come in. Yeah. We'll come in and people are talking about what's happening in Americana and Philadelphia, what things have changed. I have Megan Carey coming in, and we cover one of her songs. She's had success in New York and Philadelphia. What's the difference with Americana music in the two different markets? And we're going to have John Colgan Davis, who has had the Dukes of Destiny. This is the longest running blues band in Philadelphia. What has changed over time, and how does blues sit in the Americana scene? Jesse Lundy is a booking agent in Philadelphia, and where does Americana sit in the local club scene. So a variety of people are going to come in on camera and do that. And then I'm going to have people coming in as the ticket holders come in, and I'm going to interview them too. And they say, what clubs do you like hanging out at? You know, what bands do you like going to see? You know, how often are you going out? And when all that film is done, in between there, after we have those interviews done, the band's going to knock out a couple sets. And we've been rehearsing the daylights out of this thing. And I have a bunch of people coming in and sitting in with us, you know, who aren't necessarily in the band, but they're part of the scene and they're going to play. And then when it's all said and done, I'm going to have within a month here, because I need to submit it to premiere I want to have premiered at the local film festival. But we're going to end up with a documentary that I think is going to be interesting. And if nothing else, we're going to have a bunch of great music videos of the performances.
Well, you know,
so, Americana Philadelphia. I mean, we're really trying to put ourselves in the middle of it all.
That's awesome. Like, and even like you said, even if, you know, nothing really comes of it, you will have, and it's right there in the word documentary, but you'll have this beautiful document of like a reflection of this kind of scene that we have here, which I think is just, it's always been a really nice scene, but I feel like in the past like 10 years or so, like it's just become such a not just good music coming out of it, but a good support. Like I feel like, you know, egos are gone and everyone wants to help everybody else, and it's been really tremendous to kind of watch what it's kind of grown into, you know, at this time.
Truly, yep.
So that's this Thursday at the Living Room in Ardmore, right?
Correct.
Have you played that room?
If you haven't been to that venue, she's got Laura Mann, who's been on the scene for a long time. She's running the place, and the place is filled with couches and really comfortable chairs and stuff. And she's really made a nice place to see a show.
I haven't made it out there yet, but my pal Andy King plays there, you know, usually once or twice a year, and I keep missing these shows, but I definitely have to get out there.
Cool.
You want to go through my Jauntlet questionnaire? These are my questions that I ask every guest on this podcast. You know, being a Philly guy, you know that Jawn can mean whatever you want it to mean. So when that occurs, it doesn't have to be music; it can be anything. But the first section is the one-hit wonders, and the first one, Billy Joel or Elton John.
I cover a Billy Joel's. I cover an Elton John song on. Dreams of Modern Living, so I would have to go with Elton there.
All right. Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
Joan Jett.
Yeah. Working in the radio market and kind of her being an area person, have you ever met Joan Jett or worked any with her?
We did a Joan Jett show at the Chestnut Cabaret back in the day, and she was a sweetheart. I mean, she was literally like, you see people like her who don't really have to be nice to everybody, and frequently stars like that aren't. But yeah, no, she was, you know, she would use your name, look you in the eye, and excuse herself to go take care of something else. I mean, she was polite and wonderful. Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. That's incredible. Next one, Aretha Franklin or the recently and sadly late Tina Turner?
I mean, there's only one answer to that. Aretha Franklin.
Yeah. Yeah. Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think there's really probably one answer to that too. I mean, Nirvana was so groundbreaking. And I'll tell you a little story about where the punchline was Nirvana. I was in London, and I saw this band called Thunder. They were opening for Aerosmith at one of these pop festivals that London absolutely, you know, a million of them. And I never heard this band before. And I was in rock radio for a long time, and they're clearly in that mode. And I asked the guy next to me, I go, this band here, they've been around for a long time. 20 years, And how come they never made it in America? And he looked at me in one word, Nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
That big hair, hard rock thing stopped like hitting a brick wall when Nirvana came on.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
I've often said whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, but Kurt Cobain to me killed the flamboyant guitar solo, and I'll never forgive him for that.
Yeah, well, no, and he did, and to Pearl Jam to give them their due. I mean, the amount of time that they've had, at the top of American consciousness is like no small thing. It's hard to stay on top of things for that long.
Absolutely. Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks?
Janis Joplin.
All right. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this one, but Beatles or the Stones?
Beatles. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
Although the Rolling Stones, man, are great band. I mean,
yeah, of course.
And people back in the day, maybe 1965, you were comparing the Beatles and the Stones, but not now. You can't compare them now. I mean,
Of course. The last one of the one-hit wonders, Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven?
I used to be a short order cook, and I would sing Bohemian Rhapsody while I was flipping burgers.
Awesome. I love it.
I can play Stairway to Heaven on the guitar, but I think you're a fool if you ever try to sing it.
Yeah, it's definitely true. That is definitely true. The second section is the top 10 countdown. Like I said, Jawn, can be whatever you want. If you want it to be music, it can be music, or if you want it to be anything else. But number one, what was your first, Jawn? What was the first thing you were obsessed with when you were a kid?
February 9th, 1964. The Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. I mean,
life-changing.
Life-changing, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on, I don't know if you saw this news that came out yesterday, but Paul McCartney says they used AI to generate another Beatles song that they're working on to be able to they used it to separate John's vocals from a demo from his guitar playing. So there's new Beatles stuff coming out. It doesn't feel right, does it?
I mean, as a philosophical question or as a rock and roll question? It's a philosophical question. It's horrendous, obviously. But hey, you know what? The song could be good. People will listen to it. I mean, that's where things are going.
It'll be amazing if they chart too, because it'll add another decade to their ability to chart.
Can you even imagine?
Unbelievable. Number two, what was your first concert? Number two is, what's your current, Jawn? What are you into right now? I skipped one.
What am I currently into right now? I'm into vinyl.
Yeah.
I
Me
like
too.
listening to all the old vinyl stuff, and the remastered White Album on vinyl is absolutely stunning. You can hear the drums like you never heard them before. You can hear Ringo's changes. You can hear the imperfections in some of it. Steely Dan on vinyl.
Yeah.
So we're going back to the old stuff. So that's the current Jawn.
I love it. Number three, as I jumped the gun and said already, what was your first concert?
1968, my parents took us to see Simon and Garfunkel at the Hollywood Bowl. And they were like, I Am a Rock and The Sounds of Silence and all that. It was just an amazing performance. And I have since heard a recording of that show, and it's as good as I remembered it. And I was asking my dad at 12, Dad, what's that smell?
And what did he say?
I don't know. It was a funny kind of cigarette, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Sure it is.
Number four, what was the last concert you went to?
The last concert I went to was Medea at the living room. Yeah.
Very cool.
Irene Lambros band they're so good. Oh my gosh.
I got to check them out. I haven't heard them, so Number 5, what was your favorite concert?
My favorite concert. I've been thinking about this, and I, at a certain point, wrote down a list of all the concerts because being in rock radio, I saw a whole lot of shows. 1971. This one just keeps coming back to me because it was so impactful. We went from Portland, Oregon, where I was going to school at the time, up to Seattle to see Bob Dylan's comeback. He had just, he was recording Blood on the Tracks, and his backup band was the band. The band laid down, a 12-song set of their hits. And then Bob Dylan hit the stage with something to prove because this was a comeback situation for him. And that was a really mind-boggling show. I mean, I keep coming back to it as being, if you had to pick one show out of 100, that was it. What got me to thinking about what was the best show, though, was about 2 years ago, I saw Steely Dan do Asia at the Metro. Oh my God, that was so good.
Yeah.
I really like tight production. I like it when people are playing really complicated parts and not making any mistakes. And those Steely Dan songs they're very hard. They're very hard. And you have an 11-piece band, up there doing that and really not missing at all. It's just very, very impressive. So
it's awesome. Awesome. 2 very awesome answers to that, by the way.
But I also saw Led Zeppelin do the Led Zeppelin 3 tour. So you got to say that's in the top 5 as well.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I guess you can't discredit that.
No, not at all.
Number 6, and this might actually be a challenge with as many shows as you've been to because of the radio stuff. Who have you never seen live that you wish you would have? They can be living or dead.
Queen.
Yeah?
Never saw Queen. And I'm a huge Queen fan.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Brian May is the reason why I play guitar, and Freddie Mercury, I just bow in the presence of greatness of a frontman. Just incredible.
The greatest rock singer of all time. Without a close second.
Very much so.
You can look at a lot of bands, and there's a lot of good hard rock guitar players out there. Brian May is astounding, but there's no singers like Freddie.
100% agree. Number 7, name an unappreciated Jawn. Name something you wish had a little more attention to it.
What needs a little bit more attention? I think I would like to go local with this, and I just don't understand why Ben Arnold isn't a national treasure. The guy's he's been the best singer-songwriter in Philadelphia for the last 20 years, in my opinion. And, and his records are just tremendous.
Yeah.
So why isn't he a household name in America?
It's so weird. He was my first, what I felt to me, my first big get on this podcast was getting to pick his brain, because I feel the same exact way. He is without a doubt somebody who should be a household name, and it's perplexing to me that that it just never really blew up for him.
Right. He and I used to work together.
Oh yeah.
He was he was a copywriter at my ad agency, and one day he walked in and he said, I've told this story a million times. He walked in one day, he said, I'm quitting this job. I go, really? Where are you going to go work that's as cool as this? And he goes, I'm going to be a rock star. And he had signed to Columbia Records, and and they put it on the shelf. They let him on, and he's put out a dozen really good independent records since. But
yeah, and not just the solo stuff, but the U.S. Rail stuff, and he's just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number 8, what's your favorite album?
See, and I saw this on the list, and gosh, there's so many good ones. My favorite album is Pretzel Logic.
Yeah.
Steely Dan.
Yeah.
I could
You
listen to
can't
that
go wrong
another
with the
time.
dance. You can't go wrong with the dance at all.
No, no. And it gives you Pretzel Logic only because I probably listened to Asia too much. and Katie lied. I mean,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. I mean,
Royal
just three perfect albums, like just absolutely perfect.
for the Royal Scam.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Crazy.
Number 9, name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they put out.
Say that again? An artist that
You'll consume anything they put out. So sight unseen, you'll just immediately like a day one purchase.
yeah, John Mayer.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because he's really the best guitar player on the scene right now. I mean, it's hard to say he's the best guitar player, but his production and songwriting and guitar playing, there might be a few songs on the record that don't really connect with you, but there's always 4 or 5 that do. So I'd have to say anything he puts out, I pretty much buy.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's so weird because I think it might have even been this morning on XPN. I heard No Such Thing for the first time in forever. And that was the first song I had ever heard by him. And I remember I was in college and it came on MTV or VH1 and I was on my way out the door and it started playing and it stopped me in my tracks and I had to turn around and watch the entire video to figure out who this guy was. And
right.
I've been a fan ever since, through the highs and the lows of his personal life. But
yeah, I mean, a lot of these cats are operating at a level of celebrity that's only barely survivable.
True.
And to sort out that kind of attention and not be a complete knucklehead. Well, he has failed at that.
Yeah.
He most certainly is a complete knucklehead, but gosh, the music's just great.
It's so good, and that stuff he does with the trio, with like Pino Palladino on bass, is just like, my God.
Yeah, right.
Incredible. The 10th and final question of the Top 10 Countdown: what is your favorite Jawn of all time? Can be anything you want it to be.
My favorite Jawn of all time. I have a relationship with my daughters that's just something else.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
It's a gift that just keeps on giving. When you bring kids into the world, you watch these little minds develop, and then as they grow older and they become adults and they start running the world, it's just awe-inspiring. There's nothing quite like that. I'm not in love with my wife, but I have to say my favorite Jawn is my kids.
Ah, it's a beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. And I'm sure your wife will understand.
Yeah, sure.
So before I let you go, I do have to ask you one thing. All right. As a published and cited historian with colonial PA history, do you know the story about George Washington and General Howe's dog?
General Howe's dog. God, I do know this story, but I'm not calling it up.
Okay,
Tell me.
From what I've heard, and this is what I want to ask you. From what I heard, shortly after the Battle of Germantown, both encampments were kind of close by, and General Howe's dog got out and ended up in Washington's encampment. And Washington's people wanted to send a message and kill the dog or something and send it back. And Washington had Hamilton pen a ceasefire so that he could return General Howe's dog to him. Okay. Now, here's what I want to ask you. All right. And the documentation does exist. The letter of the ceasefire to hand this off did occur. Okay. Mm-hmm. In the middle of all of that bloodshed, right? They ceasefire over a dog. Is that not the perfect description of how insane America is?
Yeah, that's pretty much. And particularly when you consider that at that point, Washington is executing guerrilla warfare and they're just they're killing British soldiers in ways that British soldiers had never been killed before, like just out of nowhere, like from behind a tree, popping off a few of them and then disappearing. To have a ceasefire among that kind of warfare. I mean, can you see the Viet Cong doing that to GIs? No, that's a pure American deal.
It's so weird. And it's something that like ever since the first time I heard about it, I was like, it can't be true. And then I started like researching and I was like, oh my God, this is the most insane thing in the world.
That's the thing. I when I ran across it too, I said, that's like legend.
Yeah.
That's not, but no, that it did happen.
It's crazy. So the album Prairie Fire is out on all the streaming services, and you said there's vinyl. Is the vinyl available now?
We have the wax. We haven't pressed it yet because I'm still like actually this is the first time it's ever happened. We have vinyl on the last two records, and so I want to keep that going. But really, it's about what the actual product looks like. We're sort of coming up with revisions on the album cover.
Okay.
The album's completely done.
Yeah.
It's ready to press. I need a cover.
All right. Well, it's good. No, it's good. Like I think, and it definitely lends itself to, it being your current Jawn being vinyl. You respect that vinyl is something special, and that shows.
Well, and I mean, it is. It's just like you walk into a room that's playing a real record, it's got a warmth to it that's like nothing else.
Yeah. How's this album sound on vinyl? Because I bet it just sounds absolutely beautiful.
I haven't got the test pressings yet.
Oh, you haven't got the okay.
I haven't got the test pressings yet because I haven't given them artwork.
Oh man, that's crazy. Oh, it's so crazy.
So,
all right. Well, eventually,
it's gonna be here soon, and then we'll have a big whoop-de-doo album release in the fall when we do that.
Okay. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I can't wait. I want to get my hands on that because I too am a vinyl addict.
Nice.
All right. So this Thursday, June 22nd at the Living Room in Ardmore, you can catch Jefferson for the CD release or the CD release party, right? Or just album release in general.
The CD release. We're calling it an album release. Actually, when I put out CDs now, I have a QR code on it on the album cover so you're really just helping me out by buying the CD. That actually what you need is a QR code, which takes you to my website to link up with Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, SoundCloud. There's probably
Bandcamp. Bandcamp is on there. I was on that today.
Bandcamp. Yeah, so you can buy all my stuff.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Jefferson, and thank you not just for coming on here, but for all of the music you create and all of the lives you have touched as a teacher. I say this as earnestly as I can that I find that so incredibly admirable, and I thank you for spending some time with me today.
Hey, Nate, thanks for having me on, man. I don't get to riff like this hardly ever, right?
My thanks again to Jefferson for joining me on the show today. You can find more out about Jefferson by visiting his website, www.jeffersonberry.com. His latest album, Prairie Fire, is available now on all major streaming sites and available for purchase on his Bandcamp page at jeffersonberrytheuac.bandcamp.com. And you can join Jefferson to celebrate the album's release at his show this Thursday, June 22nd, at the Living Room in Ardmore, PA. Links to all of those are in the show notes. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to like and subscribe to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. And guys, it's not too late to get yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout Merit Badge for Citizenship of the World just by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for articles, merchandise, and links to all of the previous episodes of this podcast. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for our mailing list to get all of the updates delivered straight into your inbox. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YoThat'sMyJawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Yo That's My Jawn, and search Yo That's My Jawn on YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. We got some live videos up there right now from the Nicole Atkins show, one of her doing Maybe Tonight, and one of Tommy Stinson, so check that out. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out, and touch some Jawn. Well, that's all I got for you this week. Join me next Monday for another big episode where I get to chat with two of my comedic idols. Is that vague enough for you? Blue skies! Until next time, everybody!
Hey yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Your taste in music doesn't have to be.
Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by Phil Tyler Music featuring Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Natalie Runkle, and the incredibly brilliant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com. Or you can leave an audio message for us and possibly hear yourself on a future episode by visiting anchor.fm/ytmj/message. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure and shout to the world, yo, that's my Jawn.